All right, we're 2 days removed from UFC 259. Adesanya Blachowicz. That was a hell of a card, top to bottom, for sure. Prelims, early prelims, very early prelims, and the regular prelims were excellent. We had, what, 10? 10 prelim fights, and then we had the five on the main card, highlighted by the three title fights, headlined by Adesanya Blachowicz. I would say this would be our recap, but it's probably more fitting to call it a kneecap, given what our boy Piotr did. We'll jump into that. I guess let's start with the main event, Andrew. Adesanya Blachowicz. When we did our picks, I said Adesanya. I wanted Jan, but I figured Adesanya would take it. I thought speed would be the factor. You took Blachowicz, and you talked about his jiu-jitsu background, and that's ultimately what did give it to him. And he outstruck Izzy, but he had 3 takedowns, a little over 7 minutes control time. He possibly showed maybe Adesanya needs to get a little bit bigger, that he can't just walk in there around 200 pounds and be able to handle at least someone like Young.
I mean, I don't know if Adesanya getting bigger is going to change anything about that, because just watching a lot of the sort of post-fight interviews and a lot of the talk that's been going on around this fight, it seems like most people wanted to see Adesanya beat Jan and then go on to fight John Jones. Mm-hmm. But I don't even know if that's something realistic. That's something that could realistically happen at this point, considering just the sheer difference in size, and not just in terms of muscle mass and in terms of height or whatever, but in terms of, they say, "Oh, I'm big boned." You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
There's definitely a difference in bone density, and there's a difference in somebody's just genetic structure that you can tell. Like when Jan was standing in front of Adesanya, it was like he was completely blocked out of view. You couldn't see Adesanya
there was at
behind
one point
him.
he had him against the fence, and we were saying, you're like, because Izzy was slightly angled out, but if they were both straight like this, Izzy was just gone. You just see Jan. You would just think Jan is standing in front of a fence.
Dude, yeah, it looked like a wall was just erected right there, and that's kind of what I'm getting at, is that I don't know how much bulking up is going to make a difference when it comes to that. And speaking to the ground game a bit more, it wasn't shocking to me that the minute it got to the ground, Blachowicz was dominating the way that he was. For starters, Izzy doesn't really have any ground combat experience, at least.
Hey, he's a purple belt, man.
Oh, sure, that's fine, but you're going up against somebody
newly crowned.
That's professional at that, insofar as we've seen. And on top of that, you add in the bone density thing and the mass differential there, and there was no way. The minute that Jan sat on Izzy, there was no escaping that. I was thinking maybe Izzy might be able to burst out of it, but Jan.
He did once or twice, but ultimately it added up. Jan just kept wearing him, and the last 2, he just wasn't moving. What was it? I know round 5 ended with Jan on top. I think round 4 ended with Jan on top of him too, if I'm not mistaken. So, and that was the thing I was thinking to myself. I'm like, if it does go to the ground, though, and we may have talked about it in last week's show. If it went to the ground, then I was like, then it's completely different. But it was just a matter of, can he get him to the ground? Because Izzy's takedown defense, percentage-wise, had been pretty good up to this point. But Jan was 60%. He went 3 for 5, and the last 2 were, I mean, they all were, but especially the last one or the last 2 were very well timed, like so fluid. The way he took him down, it was just seamless, absolutely seamless. And then at that point, you're like, well, I think Jan yesterday probably would have weighed 10 to 15 pounds more than Izzy, if not 20.
Sure.
Because Jan was saying he wanted to be at about 219, 220 Saturday. I think they were asking Izzy after the fight or before the fight, like, what did you weigh in the ring or something? I think he was saying probably like 200, 201. So possibly 20-pound difference. To be conservative, maybe it's 10. So let's say 10 to 20-pound difference. Then you have him on the ground and you're sitting on top of him like that. Because Jan wasn't doing too much. He did end the fight he started kind of wailing him a little bit the last few seconds. He got some shots on him. But when he was on him, it's not like he was, working, trying to get an armbar or get a choke or anything. He was just more using his weight. He did get some elbows and he got some shots in, but it wasn't like a ground and pound effort. It was just more, let me tire him out.
I don't know if he could have, because Izzy's not a small guy by any means. So even though Izzy may not have had the ability to work on the ground the way that Jan could have. It may have been taking Jan all he could have just to keep Izzy pinned the way that he was keeping him pinned.
Possibly.
So even trying to go for some submissions or trying to work on the ground may have been difficult for Jan. So he figured, all right, you know what, then I'm just going to sit here. And it kind of flashes me back to, I want to say it was Lawrence. Was it Lawrence from last week that just kind of?
Oh yeah, yep, you're right.
And he just kind of,
yeah.
I think it was Lawrence, and he just laid there like that, and it makes you wonder, like it maybe because it's hard to tell when you're watching, through a television screen or through a monitor. But it's very possible that Izzy was exerting, enough pressure to make Jan think, okay, if I let up, I might lose this position. So he chose not to.
Yeah, that's entirely possible too. Like we were saying, the first couple of times, at least first couple takedown attempts, or the first one didn't get him down. Then when he got him down, Izzy kind of quickly slipped out. And Izzy was saying during his post-fight press conference, he was saying, the first couple I was able to wiggle out, but then I think he realized it, so he tightened up when he got me down and didn't really have much room to move. And props to Izzy. We talked about it last week. We're not like the biggest Izzy enthusiasts by any means. Yeah. Kind of his attitude definitely rubs us both the wrong way, but he handled it. He handled it well right immediately after the fight, like when the two are in there kind of through a miscommunication, laughing at each other, and then in the post-fight press conference too. So basically for me, how I ended up concluding it with Izzy, it seems like it matters who he's fighting. So if it's someone that just pisses him off or he's just trolling with them, then he just comes off super obnoxious. But if it's someone where Jan was not engaging in any kind of trash talking, Jan isn't really that guy, or at least we haven't seen it. So given that Jan was pretty quiet about it, Izzy was pretty quiet about it already in the lead up, not really any banter back and forth. So, and he was humble about it. So, if I'm going to lose to someone, I'm glad I lost to someone like that. For his first MMA loss, he's lost in kickboxing, and he had a loss in boxing too. But
the word class was thrown out.
Yes. Yeah. And he mentioned that, and he's spot on, man. Jan, this was at least his second straight fight as an underdog. It's probably been more. And he even said it during his interview after that. It's like, maybe starting the next fight, I won't be the underdog. And if it's against Teixeira, I can't imagine he does end up an underdog, but he's right, man. I picked against him this time. The last time we did pick him last time. So last two times. Yeah. The last two times as in UFC 259. And when he fought Reyes, you had him as well.
Well, it's funny you're saying that because Dana even said that when he was putting the belt on Jan, he turned back to look at Dana and he's like, "You don't believe in me," and I can see where Jan's coming from, man, because everybody wanted Adesanya to win. Let's not beat around the bush here. Everybody wanted that for whatever reason, either because they wanted to see the Adesanya v. Jones, or whether because they like Adesanya or they hate Blachowicz. I don't think anybody could hate him. So
no, I think it's more like it's just more Adesanya has a lot more fans. He's pushed forward more.
They're riding the hype
leading
train.
Up to this. Yeah, it's more Izzy's the more marketable guy for that same reason that we're saying he's kind of obnoxious, is because he's out there, he's talking. Jan isn't. Jan's not going out. And also, you have to factor, especially in the States, there's that language barrier too. Like,
for sure,
you can understand Jan, but it's a more aggressive accent, so it might be harder for people to understand. Whereas Izzy has an accent too, but not as, maybe not as difficult thing. So marketing wise, I think it's just kind of easy to push Izzy forward. I think Jan knows that too. And they asked Jan about that comment you just alluded to about Dana, and because Dana, during his thing, said the same. He's like, he's looking at me saying, "You don't believe in me." I'm like, how the hell do I not believe in you, man?
Yeah. Well, if you believed in him, you wouldn't match him up with Adesanya. Is my gut on that one, dude.
Well, no, Jan's all like, no, I wasn't saying you don't believe me. I was asking, like I think it was a question like, you believe in me now or something like. He wasn't, and he's like, there's nothing behind it. Yeah, he's like, there's nothing behind it.
Speaking of miscommunications, remember how we were watching and we're like, what are they laughing about? And Herb was getting in on the smiles and all that. They cleared out the noise and whatnot, and there was a clip of them talking, and I guess Adesanya said something about a butter guard. And Jan looks over, he's like, bodyguard? I will be your bodyguard. It's like, oh man, that's not what I'm asking.
And then Izzy's all like, huh? He's like, say that again? Because he said that, and then he's all like, well, how much are you paying your bodyguard or something? And he's like, what? It's like, your bodyguard. He's like, oh no, I said past the guard, or butter guard or whatever. And then Jan started laughing. that was funny. But you could tell, man. I mean, Jan looked way more exhausted. Izzy looked tired too, but not nearly as much. And he was saying in that same clip you were referencing that Izzy was saying his legs were fatigued, which is interesting. I wonder kind of interesting to see that his legs got. He said he's like, energy wise, I felt fine. My legs were tired. He threw 36 leg kicks, landed 29 of them. I don't know if that's necessarily why. Maybe could have been. I mean, he was also on his back a pretty good amount too, but maybe trying to get out.
Either way, I agree with you. I think Jan, especially for a 38-year-old, but him lasting 5 rounds was impressive, man. Because I could feel that he was starting to fade maybe, and towards the end of the 4th, and going into the 5th, it looked like Izzy had that round, and Jan got that takedown, and that was it pretty much. But that was my impression of it, at least. So I mean, I thought that Jan held on really well. I was kind of concerned going into that 5th round, but the strategy that I thought he would execute is what ended up happening. So
yeah, and that I'm trying to the only last thing that I can think of that I did want to mention that we were both confused about, because you had some Mountain Dew on it, I had Mountain Dew on Izzy, you had it on Jan. I didn't know where this fight was gonna go. Like once it ended, I didn't know what the scoring was gonna be, because through the first round I thought Izzy won. The second round I didn't know. The third round I didn't know. Then the 4th and 5th I thought Jan won. So for me, I was like, I don't know who's winning. You guys were like, no, I think Jan won. It was probably like three rounds to 2. Then the judges' scorecards came out.
I gave the first 2 to Izzy. The 3rd and the 4th I gave to Jan. And the 5th, like I said, I thought Izzy was winning that at the start. And then Jan, with the takedown and the control time, just took that one. But I had it at, 2 for Adesanya, the first 2, and 3 and 4 for Blachowicz.
Yeah, so what ends up being weird is not only does every judge give 4 rounds to Jan, so the most they gave Izzy was 1 round. Man. 2 judges gave, was it 2 judges? We have one here. Sorry, 1 judge gave, so there was a 10-8 given by 2 different judges. 10-8 by 1 judge was round 5. They gave it 10-8 to Jan. Actually, the other judge also gave it 10-8 to Jan.
There was no 10-8 final round fight at all.
And none of them scored the first round for Izzy, which I think we both said we thought Izzy had that. You said the second round too. Only 1 judge gave the second round to Izzy. And then another judge gave round 3 to Izzy. 2 judges gave round 3 to Izzy. One judge gave round 2 to Izzy. The rest were given to Jan. And then 2 gave him a 10-8.
It literally doesn't surprise me.
I don't agree with that.
No, how can you, dude? Anybody who was watching that fight is going to disagree with that. But it doesn't surprise me, considering earlier on during the event, we saw some pretty interesting scores from possibly the same judges. So what was it? There was a 30-25 on one of the fights.
That was against, was that the Elliott one, or was that a different one?
I don't even remember, man. But hold on, let me see. I actually had it written down in my notes.
Yeah, I've got the scorecard here.
Yeah, that was Elliott, 30-25.
Yeah, that one I was like, I had a 10-8 in there. Like 1 judge had a 30-26. I felt that was good, but I don't know about 2 10-8s.
No, these judges are insane, man. And either way, something needs to be done about them, because it could potentially end up ruining a fight, man.
Yeah, there was an interesting proposition. One of the reporters was asking Izzy, like, how would he feel if, like, in between rounds, the fighters were informed of what the judges had scored? So, like, if you're in round 1, round 1 ended, they're like, hey, man, you're down 10-9, or you're down 10-8. And then Izzy was kind of like, that could be a good idea. And then I guess in Invicta, they have it where the corner is informed what the score is, and then from there the corner is then the onus is on the corner whether to let their fighter know what the score is or to keep it to themselves. And then once that was relayed to Izzy, he's like, you know what, I like that. Like, maybe he's like, that sounds like a good idea to me. And I thought about it, I was like, that does seem like it could be a good thing for the fighters. If it's like you tell the corner, and the corner will know their fighters. Like, okay, based on how I know their psyche and how they're looking, maybe I should let them know that they're up 2 rounds right now, or maybe I shouldn't let them know this round. Let me find out what the next round is, and then I can let them know. It doesn't have exactly to do with the scoring that we were discussing, but maybe approach-wise for fighters, because we see it where certain fighters think they're up two rounds to one or something, and the scorecard, they read the score at the end, they lose, and like, what the hell? How the hell did I lose that? Because then you maybe see an alteration, but who knows? I mean, I feel like you can make a case on both sides, but that was kind of an interesting question that was brought up, and I was kind of wondering, what could that look like if that was to be entertained? I don't know. I probably won't be, but at least not for the foreseeable future, but it was an interesting proposition.
It's funny you're bringing this up because I had this thought today, and this is a complete aside, so please don't beat me up that hard for it. But like, I was even thinking, man, get rid of that clock that's cage side.
The DraftKings clock.
Yeah, like to me as a fighter, you know, like, I get it. You want that time to reset, and you want to be able to see what you have to do when you want to do it and all that. But like, I think it would be so interesting to sort of not know. Because let's say, and the compound this not only on top of removing that clock, but getting rid of those little breaks too, man. Do a 10-minute or a 15-minute continuous combat fight, no clock, no nothing. You fight until that guy's either down or time runs out. You know, like, how interesting would that be, man? I think it would completely change the dynamic of it. I mean, that's a given, but I feel like you get some really vicious fights out of something like that. And it's interesting to me that, you know, that's not done. They kind of are doing like the boxing thing, but maybe it was done that way in the past and they changed it.
Yes, yeah. If I'm not mistaken, like the early days of UFC, it was like at least the main ones, I think, was like a 30-minute fight. Like, go.
That's
awesome. Just like 30 minutes and you go, something like that. I don't know if they all were, or if it was just like the main events where it was like, I don't know, 20, 30 minutes, something like that. So there was at some point the UFC did have it that way. When they switched out of that, I don't know. I'm fine with the rounds being split. The clock, I didn't think was like that clock. I don't remember if it was always, has it always been there, and I just didn't notice it. That was
the first time I noticed it.
They were highlighting it, and it definitely seemed like people that were like designated to go tweet about this, because they just struck a deal with DraftKings to be like their official betting partner. And then no one's going to tweet, hey man, that DraftKings clock in the back over there looks pretty good. It looked like a standard like recreational gym timer clock. It just slapped on the DraftKings logo. It looks like the same timer that they use when I used to play basketball. It just didn't say DraftKings on it. I was like, chill out. It's not that big a deal. Whatever. That's Izzy and Jan. And the other thing we were saying, just the final one on that we were saying during the fight was like, by no means was it fireworks. It was not a slow paced fight. It did kind of start slow like we expected, but the pace throughout was a much more calculated by both men. Sure. But it wasn't boring. Like, it wasn't like a do something. It was more like you're like kind of sitting on the edge of your seat, like, okay, who's going to respond with what next, or who's going to act next. It was a very sound fight technically by both guys, more so by Jan, I would say, but still very, very, very tactical.
The tension in because we saw this live at a bar in Vegas, and the tension in the room was nuts, man. I think that was the first time we've seen an event pre-COVID, like live in a scenario, in an environment like that. And man, everybody was quiet. There wasn't really much talking going on. It was everybody staring at that screen, and that was awesome to experience. So, since we're on the subject of final things, I did want to point out that another thing that you and I were noticing is how Jan was checking those leg kicks. Fairly decently, man. He's kind of started to stop, maybe towards the end of the second. But it was almost every time as he would throw a kick, Jan's leg would be right there to check it. And that was impressive to see as well, just how aware he was of the fact that he needed to be careful of that. And I mean, I don't know what else to say. Like, it was impressive to notice him and notice him noticing those leg kicks coming in.
Izzy acknowledged it too during his interview. He said Jan checked a couple of those, but Jan was saying, he's like, my leg hurts during his post conference. He's like, he has the strength. He's like, my leg hurts, but he did check it, man. Imagine if he didn't check him, what situation that leg would have been. But the timing looked good on him too. So props to him. Well-deserved victory. It's looking like it's going to be him and Glover next. They asked Dana. Dana kind of acknowledged it. That's probably going to be it. Jan also said, he's like, I would like it to be Glover. Glover 100% deserves it. This fight should have been Glover. Obviously, this one was the one that's going to sell the the buys for the pay-per-view. But on merit, Glover deserved this fight 100%. So, and Jan said he wants at least 6 months off. So maybe we see that fight closer to the end of the year. I don't know if Glover's going to sit around and wait though. I mean, it would be safer for if he does sit around and wait, versus possibly go out there, fight, get hurt, or lose, and then who knows then. So next time we see Jan will be later this year, maybe closer to the end of the year, if even that. Who knows? He just had a baby, so let's see how he wants to approach that. That was our main event. Entertaining fight, like we said, much more tactical, not as many bombs getting thrown, but still a very good fight. Prior to that, we had Amanda Nunes with a cakewalk against Megan Anderson. I don't think we really need to spend that much time on this.
What is there to say, man? Like, everybody knew it. It's unfortunate because it goes back to what we were saying. Maybe that division needs to be just removed, man, because she's insane. She's insane. Yeah. She's that good of an athlete. That's it. I have nothing else to say about that. Like,
2 strikes landed for Megan.
In my notes here, I just put 3 letters, LOL.
Yeah. So, I remember we were watching and you're like, hold on, man, let me write down my notes on this before we continue. Now we saw you typing, you just went. That was it. And yeah, I was accurate, man. I mean, she just got in there just before you knew it, the fight was done. And I took the over on the rounds. It was like set at 1.5. I was like, I mean, Felicia Spencer got her ass kicked for 25 minutes. And I was like, I don't know, man. Megan Anderson's way bigger. Over under 1.5 on that. It's a 5-rounder. I was like, it'll probably go over. Done in like 2 minutes.
It was her. It was her height that played against her, man. It let Nunez get that armbar in.
Yeah. Oh, that was beautiful, man. She had her throat wrapped up with her legs and then just grabbed that arm, and I was like, oh man, it's over. But the result was by no means a surprise. Again, I won't go into it as much detail as I did last week, but I still have my answer, my question of, is she good for this sport, man? She's so far above ahead, at least for those 2 divisions. She's not fighting everywhere, but it's like, I don't know, man. Like, what the hell are these women fighting for at this point? But I talked about that more last week. I won't go into it again, but my question was not answered. If anything, that question, I feel like is that much more validated in my mind. Like, I don't know how much of a plus she is when these women have absolutely no reason to be fighting outside of their slight paycheck versus, but I don't know, man. Well, props to her.